Hey guys, welcome to a flight simulator tutorial on how to import your old flight sim installation into a new computer. And if you're like me, it's taken me about 7 years to gather all of my flight sim stuff. That includes add-on aircraft, add-on sceneries, all sorts of stuff. And I have about 51 gigabytes worth of content. Now, if you're like me, you're probably hesitant to either upgrade your hard drive, maybe upgrade to Windows 7 or Windows 8, or maybe even Windows 10 when it comes out. And you're thinking about doing those upgrades, maybe upgrading your motherboard like I did and your processor. You can't just plug in your old operating system into a new motherboard and processor because it won't boot up. More than likely, probably 90% chance or even more that it's just not going to happen. So how do you preserve your flight sim? You're probably hesitant because you don't want to start from scratch. And yes, you can reinstall flight sim off of your DVDs and then keep a backup of the original and copy over your add-on aircraft, maybe reinstall a bunch of payware aircraft, reinstall a bunch of payware scenery and all that. But there has to be an easier way, and I'm here to show you how you can do that. Okay, so here are my drives, and I just installed Windows 7, and everything is working great. And if you're like me, you might import the entire old hard drive. Don't delete anything. Don't delete Windows. Just keep your old hard drive around, whether it's SATA. I'm actually running, believe it or not, it's an IDE PATA drive. It's about 9 years old, and it's a 250 gigabyte Seagate, which was state of the art when it came out. Now it's pretty outdated, but it literally runs off of a ribbon cable. Okay, and if you have one of those old hard drives, you can buy something called an IDE or a PCI IDE adapter card. You can just Google it. I'm sure you'll find it. And basically, it allows that ribbon to connect into your PCI, and you're able to have that. Now, most people are not going to have that issue. They're just going to have SATA. So when you build your computer or you upgrade your operating system, you're just going to plug that old hard drive right into your SATA, and it'll show up as a drive. And what I did is, it came up as D drive. I just renamed it to B drive. And here's my, this is a 3 terabyte drive, but here's my local hard drive. And here's the old drive here. Part of the reason why I upgraded is you can see that I'm losing space here, so I had to do it, as well as the increased performance of my new build. But here's my folder, and I'll show you the, you can see it's 51.5 gigabytes. So that, again, includes all sorts of aircraft, add-on scenery, significant amount of add-on scenery, and aircraft. And it's not just that; it's also the tweaks that you've done, the configurations, all of the modules, countless gauges that you've had to add throughout the years. It's talking about 7 years of additions that you've added to your flight simulator. So how can we run this? So maybe you're like me, and you'll start. You'll see this drive in here, and you're like, hey, let me just try running flight sim. And you're going to get 3 distinct errors that are going to give you problems in Flight Simulator. So the first problem that I had when I just tried to run flight sim from my old hard drive on the new operating system was this MSXML SP2. Now, I don't know if Windows stopped distributing this with new Windows. It's a pretty old, it was made in 2006. It's an older version of the SP2. So it's not something that probably comes with Windows 7. I'm specifically running a 64-bit Windows 7 Home Premium Edition. So if you're running x86 or a 32-bit operating system, you might not have this problem. Maybe Flight Sim will just start right up. Okay, you're going to have an activation error. You're going to have registry errors, but maybe it'll start up. If you do try to do that, the first thing I notice is that I don't have, well, one, it wouldn't run without this. So what I would recommend is either Googling it, and you can go ahead and run it, or you can find it on your disk 1 or disk 2, I can't remember which one. It's this MSXML, and you can see here it's the 4.0 SP2 version. So let's say you run that installer, you fire up FSX, and it runs. You're going to get an activation error. And what you'll notice is that there's no multiplayer ability. That tells you that your flight sim copy is not registered, and it'll give you that error when you start it up. If you're running premium content like A2A Cessna, for example, you can run an unregistered or unactivated version of FlightSim, but my A2A was completely messed up. It was none of the systems would work. It was totaled, and when I tried to do a complete overhaul, it wouldn't work. So basically, it just wouldn't work for some weird reason. I don't know if it has to do with activation, or maybe not having SimConnect or FSUIPC installed. Excuse me, but it definitely gave me a significant error. At this point, I started thinking, how can I activate FlightSim? And the short answer is that it's very difficult to activate it, if not impossible, if you don't have an installation in the registry. So the way to fix that is to do a second install of FlightSim on your current C drive, just to get the registry entries in there. Now the registry, it's just an address. It just tells the computer where certain files are. So if FlightSim is installed and that registry isn't there, then FlightSim can't find certain files. It doesn't understand where your scenery, maybe your scenery library is, and all sorts of other weird things that happen, especially with third-party add-ons. Now, if you're just running single player and you don't care about multiplayer, you very well may be able to fire up FSX and it might just work. But I highly recommend that you do a second install on your C drive just to get those registry entries in there. And then what we're going to do is we're going to point the registry to our old flight simulator installation, so that all of your add-on aircraft and add-on scenery will be hopefully good to go, and it'll show up. And that brings us to the second major error that you'll encounter: installing FlightSim all over again. I think this might be limited to 64-bit, but it might be 32-bit as well, or it might be Windows 7. I'm not sure. But what I did is I tried running the installer, and I was pretty happy about it because it went all the way, almost all the way through, almost done. I was running it off the DVDs at that point, and it gets almost to the end, and just before the end, it'll give you a weird error, and it'll roll back the entire installation. That means it'll delete all that time that it's been installing. It'll delete all of that. Before I get into how to fix that installer issue, I just want to segue into a point here with running FlightSim off of a USB hard drive or a flash drive, running the installer. I'm running a few games off of USB hard drive, including Arma 2 and Arma 3, and I've read some articles where USB 3.0 is almost as fast as an SSD. Now I'm sure there's probably people that know way more and have some hard data on that, but somebody collected some hard data and they said, hey, USB 3.0 is amazingly fast. In fact, a lot of people don't realize how fast it is. It might take you a little bit longer to load on a USB 3.0, but not too far from an SSD, as far as I know. Now, I'm not saying an SSD won't be a whole lot faster, but USB 3.0 is not far behind it. And I'm pretty sure USB 3.0 is faster than even SATA, which runs your traditional hard drives. So what I did was I had to dig up my old DVDs and pop them into the DVD drive, and took a while to copy those files over. So a faster way to do that, or kind of a way that you can install it without having to dig up DVDs in the future, is to copy your entire disk 1 and disk 2 into a installation folder. As you can see here, this is my external hard drive, and I'm just running disk 1 and disk 2 on there. And you put in disk 1, and you're going to copy, you're going to Control A or something, copy all that into installation folder, and you'll run into two copies of files that are similar. One is the auto run, and you can see this is auto run disk 1, and this is auto run disk 2. And then you also have this DVD check, which is a double, but it's essentially the same file. Copy disk 1 over, and then when you copy disk 2 over, you're going to get this conflict. You can either keep both files like I did, or you can overwrite them. I recommend just keep both files, just in case there's an issue. But once you run the setup here, it will run through disk 1 and disk 2. But before we do that, I'll show you how to prevent that rollback error when you try to install this. I forgot to mention one thing. This entire installation is about 8.53 gigabytes, so you can even fit that on a flash drive that you just have laying around, and that way you can preserve your original DVDs and just keep them either as souvenirs, or if you have a DVD, you'll have the hard copies. And if this gets corrupted, it's not a big deal because you have the originals. Now, a lot of computers are, I shouldn't say a lot, but some are doing away with DVD drives, optical drives altogether. And even if you buy a new gaming computer, sometimes it doesn't come with a DVD drive. Everything's Steam. You can download things, and so this gives you a way to do that and not have to dig up those DVDs in the future. I also recommend you keep a copy of your FSX license serial number just in a text file, and that way you don't have to pull that up either. You can just copy paste it from this. I have both the deluxe activation as well as the acceleration serial number in this folder. All right, so let's get to how we're going to fix this installation rollback issue. So what you want to do is go into your SDK. So in Disk 1 and Disk 2, it has the SDK here. Click into that and go ahead and run that setup. I installed it on my C drive. As you can see here, it's Flight Simulator X SDK. Now, just a note about installing Flight Simulator Program Files x86. You can read forum after forum which talks about how this is a bad thing. I don't know if that's ever been verified or what the research has been behind that, but it's kind of universally known not to do that, to install it into a base drive, because this has issues with permissions or something like that. Anyway, just to be safe, go ahead and install it in your primary C drive, FSX SDK. Once you do that, you're going to go into your SDK folder, go into Core Utilities, go into SimConnect, and go ahead and go into Libraries and run the SimConnect installer. And once you do that, that should prevent the installation rollback error. Now, you can see how old this is. It's from 2006. I have to do this myself. Get a current SimConnect so that you avoid any conflicts with modern add-ons that use a updated version of it. And you can see those steps here. Basically, install SDK and then run SimConnect, and then you want to run the installer. Okay, so you're ready to run this installer, and go ahead and run the setup. And it works just like it does off the DVD. The only difference is it won't ask you for disk 2. It'll just roll right through disk 1 into disk 2, and it'll install the entire thing. I recommend you install it into your C drive directly again, into FSX Flight Sim, or however you want to name that. And here's what the finished product looks like. We have Flight Simulator X. You can see it's only 16.6 gigabytes, so about double the size of our installation Disk 1 and 2. Actually, that also includes acceleration. So let me go back a step here. And when you do the acceleration folder, you want to do that in its own folder. And when you try to run this, it'll give you an activation error. So let me show you how you can fix the activation error on the Gold Edition. Alright, so at this point you can go ahead and try to fire a flight simulator up without running acceleration, because you won't be able to install it without the activation. If it gives you the activation screen, you're good to go. Just go ahead and put in your serial number, activate it. It should do it over the internet, and you should have no problems. However, some people have an activation error. If you look at Joe W's post here, I think he might have copied this from somewhere else, but there's Joe Watson. There's a few things that he tells you here. I'll put all of these links, by the way, in the description. I'll show you the two main ways that you can do it. All right, the first way that you can do it is to go ahead and go to this dlxkey.txt. And what that is, that's your product key. Okay, and I'll show you what it looks like. This is the acceleration key, but it's the same thing. Basically, you're going to put in your product key in here, and then save it. And then try running Flight Sim again, and it should automatically activate. You'll see a quick activation screen, and then it should be activated. And same thing here with the acceleration key. It's found in your Flight Simulator X folder. Go ahead and just put in your key with the dashes in there, and save it. And when you run acceleration, it should activate it if you're getting that activation error. If your installation is really corrupt, or maybe you tried an installation and then something happened, um, you shouldn't have to do this on a fresh install, but you can actually do a registry hack, and some people aren't really comfortable with this. I'll put this link in the description as well. Basically, you're going to copy this, and then you're going to hit left Windows and the R key. You're going to hold down left Windows, hit the R key, and type in regedit, and that'll open up your registry editor. If you go Control F and just go ahead and paste that entire code in there, you should be able to find it, or you can do it manually by just going systematically through H key local machine system, CONTROLSET 01 control, and then go to class, and you should see that long identifier. In there, you'll see this Upperfilters thing, and you want to change that. Usually it's 0, and you want to change that to part MGR, and just click OK. And then he says go ahead and remove any other data in that. Just change it to part MGR, close the registry, and start Flight Sim again, and it should give you the registration wizard. That worked for some people. However, most people should just run Flight Sim and get the activation window just fine. All right, so once you get the Gold Edition activated, you'll notice that multiplayer does appear, and that tells you that you have a legit copy and that everything is registered and working well. Once you do that, you can close out of Flight Sim and go ahead and run your acceleration setup. And you'll do the same thing. The setup will automatically detect your Flight Sim installation through the registry, and it will install acceleration on top of that. Once you do that, go ahead and run Flight Sim again, and you'll get the acceleration activation wizard that'll show up. If you have issues, just repeat the steps that we did last time, and hopefully that'll be activated for you. Now again, remember, the entire reason that we're installing Flight Sim is just to get those registry entries in our system so that FSX is recognizable. Okay, what it is, it's a ghost copy. It's not something that we're probably going to use. It's just something that is a placeholder for now. Before I go on through the installation, let's talk about something very important that we need to do. Now, if you're like me, you've probably preserved your entire hard drive. If you didn't, you can save these files before you do your new build, or somehow preserve them. And the files that you want to preserve are users, and go into Naval Aviator or whatever your username is, and then go into your app data, roaming, Microsoft, and then FSX. What this folder contains is all of your settings, especially probably the most important is your FSX CFG, which includes everything from your graphics settings to any tweaks that you've done, countless tweaks that you can do to the CFG, and I know I've done a ton of them throughout the years. All of your gauges, modules that have been that are trusted that you've activated, traffic, mesh complexity, autogen, all sorts of things, opening screen. So if you want to preserve that, I would copy this entire thing. Go ahead and copy that, or really you can just copy the entire FSX folder here and paste that into your C drive. And again, it would be C drives, users, your username, app data, roaming, and then Microsoft. And go ahead and paste that FSX, and you'll have all of your settings from your previous build in the new one. Now, if you have a new video card and new resolution, don't worry about that. Flight Sim will recognize it automatically and make the configuration changes as necessary. One note about seeing this: if you can't see it, you should see your. If you can't see this app data, you can see it's kind of grayed out a little bit. You want to hit Alt, go into Tools, go into Folder Options, View, and then where it says Hidden Files and Folders, click on Show Hidden Files and Folders and Drives. Click Apply and click OK. And you should be able to see this. Go ahead and go into Roaming. Here's Microsoft, and paste that FSX, all those FSX settings into here. That way, the next time you start Flight Sim, it should have, well, when we start Flight Sim in our old drive, in my case the B drive, the flight sim will load up all of my old settings from the old hard drive, which includes scenery and all sorts of stuff. And you want to do the same exact thing with your old drive users, your username, and then go into My Documents, and then go ahead and go into Flight Simulator X files. You want to copy all of these. Now these are all your saved flights. Every saved flight that you've created over the years will be inside of this folder. So you want to make sure to copy that over into the respective C drive users, your new username, whatever it is, documents, and then go ahead and paste this Flight Simulator X files into there. And you'll have all your saved flights ready to go when you start a flight sim. Okay, so now we're left with two things. We're left with our old hard drive Flight Simulator X and our new hard drive Flight Simulator X. So what we want to do is point the registry to our old drive. Now you have two options at this point. If you try to run Flight Sim from your old hard drive, it should start right up. It should be activated. It should really be no different than running it on here. And you can actually have a dual installation of Flight Sim at this point. You can keep the Ghost one, on your C drive, or you can actually copy the entire Flight Sim X folder into your C drive. Okay, and you have two choices. You can either copy the entire 51 gigabytes or however big it is into your C drive, and you're ready to go. Flight Sim is registered. All the registered entries are there. You shouldn't have any problems. But in case you want to run it off your old drive, which I am, you need something called a registry tweaker, or tweak. I'll leave this link in the description, and it's FSX Tweak FS Registry Utility. Now, Flight 1 also has one. I think this one is really good. I'll show you what it looks like. Once you download it, it'll look like this, and I'll go ahead and run it. And it'll have nothing in here, so you want to go to Set Path, and this is where you can change where your active Flight Sim installation is. And the reason to do this, let's say you buy a third-party add-on or add-on scenery or whatever, the first thing the installer is going to do is look in your registry and see where FSX is installed. Okay. Now, because we just installed it, it's going to look directly in our C drive. So, like I said, if you want to just copy-paste your entire old installation into the C drive, you can do that at this point. And it should run just fine. You might have some, if you have to fix your activation files, go ahead and do that. But let's say you want to run it off the old drive. You'll click here, and you're going to go into B drive, or wherever your old drive is. Click Flight Simulator X, click OK, and click Add to Current User. That'll also add it locally as well. And then you're going to set your FSX path. It's already in the registry, so I'll do it again. It doesn't matter. And it says your FSX registry has been updated. Okay. So now to verify that, go over to Get Path, and you're going to get path. You're going to look in the HKey local machine, and you can see here that here's the FSX folder in the registry. So anytime I run an installer at this point, it's going to point to my B drive. If you want it to point to your C drive, you don't have to do anything. And also you can check your HKey current user. It's also registered to the B drive. Alright, so at this point, go ahead and fire Flight Simulator up. And you can see on my new computer, I have FSX acceleration. And here's the A2A aircraft with no problems whatsoever. It's running perfectly fine. And if I go into my custom missions, you can see that all of the flights are there that I've created. There's a bunch from FS Passengers, a bunch of other things. And here are the aircraft. Got the Albatross there, bunch of add-on aircraft, VRS, T-45. All the aircraft are here, and they're ready to go. And this is running off of the old hard drive. The last thing you want to check is your scenery library. And for some reason, I had issues with this. One word of caution, keep a backup of your scenery config file, .cfg file. And that is in your roaming Microsoft FSX. That is what has all of your registered scenery libraries. Now, if you make the mistake that I did, and I actually ran Flight Sim a few times trying to figure this out, it generated my scenery library, but it generated it on the new install. So my scenery CFG on the C drive was empty, and it just messed things up. So I highly recommend that you keep a backup copy of that roaming. That scenery CFG is very vital, so it can update all of these. Now I can still add these manually. Maybe you have this issue as well. Maybe I didn't do anything wrong, but you just go add area, and you're gonna have to do it one by one. But you'll add the area, and you'll add them here, and then once you click OK, it'll rebuild your scenery library. So all of your settings are imported as well. That includes your custom display settings, your sound. The only thing that doesn't import is your controls, and this has always been an issue with FSX. Sometimes you shut FSX down, you come back in, and your axes are messed up and things like that. So you probably have to go in and manually add these control axes and maybe add some joystick buttons to your to your controls here. But that should be the only complication. That maybe the scenery, but everything else I haven't had any issues. I think this is it works perfectly fine, and that way this will enable you to import your entire flight simulator library into a new computer build. I know some people, including myself, are thinking about the Steam version because you can run it on an external hard drive. If Windows crashes, for instance, your Steam is fine. I'll give you a good example. I have Arma 3 on my old computer, completely different motherboard and everything. And when I installed the new computer, all I had to do was reinstall Steam, and I fired up Arma 3, and everything worked. I mean, I didn't have to do all of these shenanigans. So that's why FSX Steam is probably a good alternate. And there's ways you can look at forums where they teach you how to import add-ons into Steam. Now, some of them are not supported, like PMDG apparently is one of them. They're trying to work that out. I think VRS TACPack, they're not even thinking about implementing it into the Steam edition until they figure out what's going on with prepared. But as far as having something that can install quickly and still preserves all of your stuff, this is the best method that I can think of to keep all your stuff and not have to go through Steam. And you still have, if you have PMDG, it should still be perfectly fine. You won't have to reinstall all of that stuff. The only other thing that you want to do is Run SimConnect, update that, get the latest version of FSUIPC, which you should know what that is if you're an avid flight simulator simmer, and then also get the current version of the MSXML SP file or SPT file. Other than that, SimConnect and FSUIPC, you want to get the most current versions of those. Another issue that I had is for instance, FS Recorder had some issues. Again, that could be SimConnect that's outdated. So if you're having some of those add-ons that aren't working exactly as planned, try those two things: updating SimConnect and FSUIPC. I think that's it, guys. It's been awesome with the new Intel processor and and the new motherboard. I'll give you a quick demo here. And I'll show you the load time. Load time's actually not bad. If you have an SSD, I'm sure this will probably happen in a second or two. If you're running on SATA, it might be pretty quick, but this is literally kind of crazy. It's running off of a IDE PETA into a PCI Express board. And here's my FS Recorder here. But you can see, I'm in the aircraft, everything's fine, and all my add-ons are here, so can't complain. Hope you guys enjoyed this tutorial, and I'll see you guys next time. Thanks for checking it out. Let me know what you think in the comments, and enjoy your flight simming.